Pillar candles. What it is, how it's made, my experience as I made one for the very first time, what issues I ran into, and mistakes I made I want you to avoid. All of this and much more you will find in this video. During today's crafting exercise, we will be using an electric cooker, water, a wax pot or a double boiler pot, a medium-sized pot, a pillar candle soy wax, a thermometer, color dyes, fragrance oil, pillar candle mold, wick, wick stabilizer, and a paper tape. The bundle comes with two different soy wax flavors. Traditional soy wax used for candles in tins, jars, or tea light candles. The second flavor is pillar candle soy wax. The traditional soy wax is too soft for pillar candles and tends to stick to the acrylic pillar candle mold, which makes the candle removal out of the mold that much more difficult. Pillar candle soy wax, on the other hand, due to its consistency, will not stick to the mold and will hold its shape once removed from the pillar mold. For candle making, we will be using the double boiler method. We put about an inch of water at the bottom of a medium-sized pot. Into the medium-sized pot, we put the wax pot or double boiler pot with the wax in it. And this is how it works. Cooker warms up the water. Water warms up the wax pot, which will melt the wax. This is why it's called a double boiler method. This method is always recommended for wax melting. Melting the wax directly over the flame in a standard pot is too hot, and wax can catch on fire. It only takes about 5 minutes for the wax to melt. Be sure to keep an eye on the temperature. You want it to be generally around between 160 and 185 Fahrenheit, which is about 70 to 85 Celsius. To make sure we don't overheat the wax, we are using a thermometer. Almost all items I will be using today come from the candle making kit by Craft Evolved. The link to the bundle will be in the description below. If the wax gets higher than 185 Fahrenheit, take it off the heat. Do not heat the wax about 275 Fahrenheit. It could catch fire. If it does, do not use water to put it out. It will cause the fire to spread. Use baking soda or pot lid to smother it. When wax is melted, use candle dye. You need a lot of dye to achieve a deep color, so be generous. We usually recommend up to 1 full block for 8 ounces of wax. Stir until the dye is completely melted and the wax is in a uniform color. Then let it cool to 140 Fahrenheit, which is about 60 degrees Celsius. Once at the desired temperature, add your desired fragrance oil. Each wax is different and requires different amount per pound of wax. A safe bet would be around 10 milliliters or one whole fragrance oil bottle, which comes with this kit, per one bag of wax. Pour the fragrance into your double boiler and stir for about 30 seconds or so to ensure it's evenly distributed. We suggest adding the fragrance just before pouring. This avoids prolonged heating of the fragrance, which may contribute to some of the fragrance being lost. Now let's prepare the candle mold. Through the opening at the bottom of the mold, guide the wick through. Even though the wax is thicker than water, if poured into the mold when hot, it will leak through the opening at the bottom of the mold, even if the wick is in place. In order to prevent wax leaking through the bottom opening, I am trying here to pour only a little bit of wax at the bottom of the mold to create a seal over the opening. Then I wait a moment for the wax to cool, and then I try to add a bit more wax. I am being very careful because I don't want the fresh wax to melt through this seal. While I am waiting for the wax to cool off in the mold, at the same time the wax is cooling off in my pot. And here is where I am running into an issue, as I will find out later. So I will repeat this process until the mold gets filled almost to the top. Pay close attention to the wax pot. You can clearly see how the wax is thick. You can clearly see the green color. When the wax is hot and liquid, you cannot really tell the color until the wax starts to cool off. That is telling me perhaps I was pouring the wax too cold. I will tell you at the end of this video how this cool wax affected the candle. Now I have warmed up the wax again and I am pouring a new layer. I am not confident if the hot wax is still too hot for the layer underneath and will melt all the way through. You can see the wax is not thick anymore, green color is not visible, indicating the wax is much warmer this time. As always, do not use all the wax. Keep some for later just in case you need to do some repour due to the surface imperfection, like air bubbles or sinkhole around the wick. Make sure you save enough wax from the original batch so the color of the top off is consistent with the first pour. Now we will secure the wick with the wick stabilizer to ensure the wick will be nicely centered in the middle of the candle. We will leave the candle like this overnight and let it cool off. As expected, I was not able to avoid the sinkhole near the wick, which is pretty normal. We will have to do one more repour, and that's when the leftover wax will come handy. We melt the spare wax we saved earlier. Pour a bit of wax into the mold to cover the sinkhole. You should not go about the original fill line, especially with the pillar candles, because it will create a visible line indicating the second repour. For some reason, I just broke this rule, didn't want to waste any wax. and just put everything in there I had in a pot. We will see in a moment how this step affected the final candle as well. Now let's figure out how to take the candle out of the mold. We will start by cutting the wick at the bottom of the mold. The candle should come out easily out of the mold by simply flipping over the mold and tapping at the top. This step will tell you if you use the right kind of wax. Remember, a standard soy wax will stick to the mold and you will not be able to take the candle out. Last thing to watch out for, you'll probably have a few inches of wick sticking up from your candle. You'll want to trim that down to about 1/4 of an inch. A wick that's too long will burn too big and hot. Now let's recap all mistakes I made and lessons I learned. When dealing with larger wax quantities, especially when the wax is too hot, you may cause shrinkage, which may cause you have to do multiple repours. On the other hand, pouring wax too cool may cause unwanted air bubbles, blemishes, and other defects on your candle's finish. Using this slow, multiple steps layered approach, I have created a visible wax layers at the bottom of the candle, which I will call as they are, cosmetic defects. Next thing I see here, which is clearly visible, are air bubbles. Remember the thick wax which was showing green color when pouring? That's what caused these bubbles. And then at the top of the candle, you can see a hairline, which indicates the last repour to cover the sinkhole. I should not go over the original pour line, but I did not want to waste any wax, and this is the outcome. With all the honesty, immediately once I started this experiment by creating a wax seal over the bottom opening, I realized there must be an easier way how to do it. I should seal the bottom with a paper tape or think of something else how to do it more properly. But as the title of this video says, this is my first attempt and this is how I did it. For my next attempt, I will try out the paper tape and will let you know how it worked out for me. If you have any experience with pillar candles and know a different way how to pour the wax into the pillar candle mold, please let me know in the comment section below. If you are making pillar candles along with me, please take a moment and post a picture of it on my Facebook page where I can comment on it and have one-on-one conversation with you. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.